Look, I know I'm not a very popular Redditor, so I doubt anyone will ever see this post. But there's a story I've been meaning to get out. When I was younger, maybe 7 or 8, I lived with my grandma in a gated neighborhood. Everybody there was super nice and me. My sister and my beaut friend at the time were the only kids living in the area. So we were all pretty goose friends. We pretty much did everything together and spent all our free time hanging out. One summer, we decided to have a sleepover, something we had never done before, and my grandparents agreed, as did his. My sister decided not to come because she had a massive crush on my friend at the time. His name is Alex. By the way, anyway, we kicked off the sleepover at about 4 p.m., and we played video games for a while. We eventually had dinner and watched YouTube until it was time for bed. At this time, I think it's important to mention that I have trouble sleeping and always have. This is a result of my insomnia and sleep paralysis. As this was the case, I was awake periodically throughout the night, tossing and turning and getting up for water or the bathroom. Alex, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. He could sleep like a rock, regardless of conditions. At one point, I wake up suddenly and feel very cold despite my blankets. I look around and see that Alex is sitting up, staring at the wall. I ask him what's up and he just shushes me and tells me that I'm going to wake them. I assume that he means his parents, and he must be doing something he wasn't supposed to, so he didn't want them to wake up. I shrug off his statement and manage to fall asleep again. This happens 2 or 3 more times in the night where I wake up to him just sitting and telling me to be quiet so I don't wake them. I had absolutely no sense of time back then, so I assumed this had happened in a span of minutes, and I just never fully feel asleep, until I woke up and a shiver went down my spine. I was sweating a lot and I was shivering. Don't know about y'all, but I shiver when I'm scared. Something in my mind told me to keep my eyes closed and just go back to sleep. But I was curious to see if Alex was still awake, so I opened my eyes. Alex was standing directly above me, staring down at me. Something was off about his eyes. That's how I knew something was wrong. They were his eyes, but weren't his eyes. I again asked him what he was doing, to which he replies, "Awake me." Assuming he meant his parents, said, "Are they mad?" Then he says, "Yes, very, very mad." After he finished his sentence, I feel water hitting my face. I wipe it off and stand to look at him properly. I see that he is crying. I have never known what to do when someone is crying, so I just kind of looked at him. "They took me away," was all he said. After that, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, he was in bed. So I went to bed too, and I managed to sleep until the next morning. After we ate breakfast, we went to the public pool, where I confronted him about what happened the night before. He said he had no memory of Eve doing or saying anything that he did, and he thinks I'm joking when I tell this story. I'm not. Hey, I've been meaning to share this chilling experience that happened to me a few weeks ago. I can't shake the feeling that something sinister lingers just beyond the shadows, and I need your thoughts on this. So, I recently moved into an old house that has seen better days. It's got that eerie charm, you know, the kind where the creaking floorboards and distant whispers become your constant companions. I'm usually not one to get spooked easily, but this was different. One day, I stumbled upon a dusty, forgotten corner of the attic while exploring. Amidst the cobwebs and forgotten memories, I discovered an old, ornate box. Its brass latch beckoned me to open it, revealing a collection of vintage postcards. Each one depicted scenes of happier times, people in elaborate attire, celebrations, and grand parties. But one postcard stood out. It was a simple invitation, beautifully handwritten, inviting me to a party at this very house. The date on it was bizarre. a date that matched the day I found the box. Stranger still, it was dated decades ago. Ignoring the rational part of me, I decided to throw a party, thinking it might be a fun way to bring life back to this old house. I invited friends and decorated the place with a nostalgic touch. As the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere changed. Doors began to creak open on their own, and faint whispers echoed through the halls. A chill ran down my spine as the vintage postcards levitated off the table, swirling in a ghostly dance. I could feel eyes watching me from the shadows. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and a haunting melody echoed through the rooms, as if a piano played itself. I searched for the source, only to find the forgotten ballroom, hidden behind layers of dust and neglect. The music grew louder, accompanied by distant laughter. As the night wore on, my guests grew uneasy. Some claimed to see apparitions in old-fashioned clothing dancing in the ballroom. Others whispered about cold hands touching their shoulders when no one was around. The air was thick with a sense of unease. Desperate to dispel the eerie atmosphere, I decided to end the party. But the vintage postcard caught my eye once again, and its message became clear. Every invitation has a price, and once accepted, there's no turning back. Now I can't shake the feeling that I've unleashed something from the past. The whispers linger, and shadows move when they shouldn't. I hear the distant music in my dreams, and the postcard remains a chilling reminder that some invitations should remain forgotten. What do you think? I went to a really shitty middle school. The building itself was made in the 1920s. It had 5 main buildings: cafeteria, main hall, music, fine arts, mechanicals, and the gym. Each building was connected by these poorly built metal roofs, so that you could walk between buildings and not get rained on. But it also meant that you could see if people were walking between classes. Teachers would be able to see if a kid was lingering outside and not going to class. I was in 8th grade in my science classroom when we all heard and felt an explosion. Sandy Hook had just happened a few months before, so everyone was on edge. The principal came onto the intercom and said the code phrase that meant everyone was to evacuate the building. Context for non-Americans: after the series of school shootings, some public schools decided to have code phrases that would mean different things. Instead of saying, "Hey, there is a shooter up in here," they'd say something like Eagle's Nest or Cooper's Field. Something like that. There were multiple phrases, and they each meant something different. The only ones I remember were evacuate, hide, and then the code was the drill. You could only return inside the building when the appropriate phrase was said again, this time meaning the coast was clear. Our principal said the evacuate code word, and although we had practiced it, all hell broke loose. It was every man for himself. People were pushing each other, and the teachers were trying to have some control, but it didn't work. Students started being trampled, and they were screaming. My friend, Katie, pulled us into the girls' restroom, and we decided to hide here until the crowd had calmed down. The fire alarm went off. You couldn't hear the screams of the students over it. Then the sprinklers came on as well. Katie and I were soaked. After a few minutes, we both went out into the hall, the alarm still blaring and water everywhere. It was as if nothing had happened. The hallways were clear, no signs of the previous chaos at all. We didn't really care that much, so we ran out the back doors and to the designated safety area, a park in a neighborhood just across from the school. But as we go closer, we could see no one was there. We both assumed we got the location wrong, even though they had drilled it into us since the beginning of the year. But we had a big school, so we had multiple safety areas. We went to the next one, the parking lot by the football field. We walked around the entire school to get there, and we saw no one, not one single person. The alarms were still going, but everything looked as if nothing had happened. There were still cars in the parking lot, so we knew that teachers hadn't left, but we couldn't see anyone. A feeling of vertigo set over me, and I threw up on the football field. Katie rubbed my back and said she would call her mom. I didn't have a phone yet, and Katie had those ladybug phones that could only call her mom and the police. Katie's mom picked up and she cried, telling her what happened. Katie's mom said she would call my parents and then come pick us up. She told us to stay where we were and that she would be there soon. About 30 minutes pass. I'm not exactly sure on the time, but definitely should not have taken Katie's mom that long to get to us. Katie called again, but this time her mom didn't pick up. She tried again and again, but still nothing. We talked about calling the police, but we didn't know if we'd get in trouble. If something was really wrong, then the police would have already been here, we had figured. And looking back, yeah, we really should have just called the police. But we had this weird idea that we would be in trouble. So we stayed put and waiting again for Katie's mom. At about the hour mark, the fire alarm turned off. The period bell rang, and a few seconds later students came walking out of the buildings, casually heading to their next classes like nothing was wrong. We were closest to the gym building, and my brother had that period. I called out to him and he came running over along with the coach. They were completely dry, like they hadn't been around the sprinklers. Both Katie and I were crying, asking what had happened. They didn't answer and they took us to the nurse, who then called our parents. I kept asking the nurse what happened. There was a boom and we were told to evacuate. She said that there was a simple science experiment gone wrong in one of the other science classrooms. They wanted to make sure there wasn't a chemical leak or anything, so they evacuated the school. She told us that she understands why we would be scared, but that we should have gone to the designated safety area, the park in the neighborhood across the street. We told we did over and over again, but she just tried to calm us down, but I could tell she didn't believe us. My parents came to pick me up first. I asked them if Katie's mom had called them to tell them what happened. They said Katie's mom never called them. I told my parents what happened, and I don't think they thought I was lying. I had never lied about anything before, but they definitely didn't believe me. Katie stayed home from school for the rest of the week. I got my parents' permission to use our home phone to call Katie. I asked her if she was okay and if her mom was okay, since she never came to get us. She told me that her mom never got a call from her. Katie's mom had come to the school when the school called. Katie was angry at her mom, saying that she said she was on her way. Katie's mom was confused, telling her that she never got a call from her. Katie didn't believe her, and she had to show Katie her call history to prove that she never got a call. Katie's phone showed the call logs, but Katie's mom did not. We didn't talk about it. We never had a discussion or anything. But neither Katie or I ever talked about it again, not publicly. The memory faded into my mind. I'd like to believe that it was a dream, or maybe that shared delusion thing, or just that Katie and I made it up for attention, because those things I could accept. But there are times when I remember how loud the fire alarm was, how scared I was when I saw no one in the safety area, and the vertigo feeling that made me feel like I was dying. I don't know what happened, but I have never felt the same way again as I did in that 1 hour.